over 1,000 owners, getting a funding plan together. They shopped it to every bank in the universe and were turned down flat across the board. Basically, everybody said that you're a startup, you have no evidence that this is going to work. There's very little to recommend you, we're not funding it. This led to the first half of 2012, in which they went back to the drawing board pretty much on everything, gave up the site that they put an option on, started revising the pro forma, depression, hopelessness, this was a rough year. This was, when people had been in it. I mean, we're now 4.5, 5 years into it. People had been on the board continuously from the beginning up to this point. The board hadn't really rolled over very much, and there was a lot of frustration. There was quite a bit of fighting on the board. The original board president left at this point, and it was, it was pretty ugly. And then the cavalry arrived. And it's sort of one of these amazing stories which you could describe as a coincidence, except that I don't think it was a coincidence at all. The thing that Durham Central Market never failed to do right was get out into the community, talk to the people, see who was doing what, see who was interested in making Durham a better place, and really started making connections. So in the second half of 2012, Durham Central Market got together with a project that was being put together by Self-Help Ventures, which is a part of, I don't know if any of you have heard of Self-Help. Steve Saltzman's in the room. He's part of their healthy food initiative. But they do, I don't mean to oversimplify, but basically it's a mission-based credit union and real estate organization that invests in projects that are designed to make Durham and many, many other places better for the people who live there. And it took quite a bit of convincing because of that weird fact of fate to convince Durham Central Market that this same neighborhood that they had fled was the right place to come back to. But ultimately what happened is that we really got our heads around the idea that if you're going to create a food co-op that really can withstand the pressures of the sort of modern competitive era, you need to figure out a way not to make it exclusive, not to hide in the most precious corners of the community, but really to come out and figure out how to create a model that serves the whole community. So what originally was seen as the problem really turned out to be an incredible advantage in shaping the vision for what this store really could be and what values we really need to incorporate into it. Anyway, things start to pick up speed again at this point. They, on the back of now having a location and the support of Self-Help, which has been absolutely vital, they go back and they do another community investment campaign. They raise, at this point we get all the way up just about to just under $1 million. We'll work with Self-Help to incorporate new market tax credits into the whole mix. Sign a letter of intent on the lease, and then begin to kick off the process of building a store, hiring a general manager, and actually upfitting the whole thing and getting open. So 2014 was the go year. The general manager search started in January 2014. I was hired in May. They applied for NCG membership at that time. I still call it NCGA. Apologize for that. Anyway, so we become an NCG member. We get a general manager at that time. We're in active construction phase, which of course was supposed to last for 9 months and ended up lasting for more like 15 months. I should say that was unexpected, except of course it wasn't unexpected. Plan on that taking significantly longer than you hope it will. Turns out snow and parking lots aren't good friends. At this time, we changed the name of the store from Durham Central Market to Durham Co-op Market for two good reasons. One is it is a co-op, and we're very proud to be a co-op, and we wanted to align ourselves with co-ops across the country, also with all of the NCG branding that goes around with co-ops. And also, it was no longer located in the central district of Durham, and so Durham Central Market seemed like a pretty silly name to cling to. I'll stop on that point just for 1 second, which is to say that you will have a lot of ideas in the startup process that you will get very excited about and get very attached to, and that you will feel very much like you have created an idea and a brand and that you really believe in and that you really feel strongly about. Remember, the minute your store opened, the entire back history, you may have noticed I have not put a single photo up yet. The entire back history is exactly that. It is just history the minute you have a store. Which is to say, make any change that you can reasonably make for the success of your store up until the moment you open and even afterwards. So we certainly had a contingent on the board that said, for 4.5 years, we have been Durham Central Market. That is the thing that people invested in. And we said, pardon me, to hell with it. This is the name that we're going to make a great store out of. It's just a name, don't worry too much about it, but that's true with more or less anything. That's true with the neighborhood that it was supposed to be located in. It's true with the concept of the store that they originally had. It goes all the way across the board. Invest in a store that is going to succeed and embody the values that you want it to have in the future. Don't worry too much about where you are right now. So, 2015, March 18th last year, excuse me, I'm lying a little bit. This photo is from our grand opening celebration, which was April 11th. If you want to hear me talk about grand openings, come later in the afternoon, we'll get there. But 2015 in spring, we opened the store. It was a pretty extraordinary moment for everybody. As I say, there were people at this point who've been on board for 6 or 8 years, and getting to the point where we actually had product on the shelves was a pretty shocking thing for all of us. I'm not in this picture. That's our president of our board, Frank, cutting the ribbon. So anyway.
Members at that point, I'm sorry, I can't see it on the slide.
Oh, sorry. We opened, so again, I'm lying a little bit. On the day of the grand opening, we got our 2,000th member. Which is to say, when we actually opened, we had about 1,780. But by the grand opening celebration, we had 2,000. So anyway, that is more or less the history of getting us from 0 to open. I'm now going to tell you a little bit about the store that we actually built, which I'm extremely proud of, so forgive me if I get all emotional about it. So a couple things. I mentioned several times that we were trying very hard to be the store that our neighborhood needed and wanted. Our neighborhood in particular is a pretty interesting place. We're actually at the intersection of 3 different formal neighborhoods in Durham, and within a mile of the store you get the full breadth of spectrum of diversity in Durham in every different metric. So we have an extremely diverse socioeconomic community, we have an extremely diverse racial and ethnic community, all within walking distance of the store. And we were determined that we could make a store that would serve as broad a section of that diverse community as possible. And we looked at that several different ways. The first was, if we are creating 40 jobs in this community, we want to make sure that these are jobs that will benefit our neighbors. There were some jobs in the store that required a certain amount of prior knowledge and experience. There were many, many others that were essentially entry-level positions, and we made a decision early on where we said I would rather hire somebody who has a tremendous amount of attitude and aptitude and needs this job and loves this community than I would preference somebody who's been working at Food Lion for 6 years and can relatively easily get another job and already has the skills stocking shelves or running the cash register or whatever you might need. I can teach someone to stock shelves and I can teach someone to run a cash register. It's much harder to teach that attitude, and it's much harder to teach the love of community that we really require. So we made a decision to preferentially hire people who live within a mile of the store. More than half of our staff live within a mile of our store. And we ended up with, I shouldn't sound surprised about this, an absolutely magnificent staff that represents the community that we're a part of. Now, if you extend our network through our staff, we know, I would say, most of the people who live around the store know somebody who works at the store, feel like they're visiting friends when they come to the store. And the diversity of our staff and the perspectives that they bring have made the store tremendously stronger. Insofar as we are very capable of creating blind spots where we do a sort of group think and we all think we know where we should be headed, the broader base of perspectives that we can incorporate into the management of the store and the operation of the store, the better for sort of sussing those out and really giving us a mirror to hold up to ourselves. Anyway, this is 3 members of our beautiful staff. One of the commitments that we made because of that hiring program was that if we're going to hire people in who have a great attitude and aptitude but don't have a wealth of experience, we're going to need to train them. And we're going to train them piece by piece, and we're going to make sure that everybody who works in the store ends up with excellent training so they're able to do their jobs. Also opportunity to train for jobs in the store that are not their current jobs so that they will have opportunity for advancement over time, and as much as possible that they end up with portable skills. So if they use their experience at this job to apply for other jobs, I want them to be able to go to those other jobs and say, I have documents that represent the fact that I learned to do all of these things and that I do them well and up to the standards of the store. So we created a program we called the Badges Training Program, in which we break down skill sets into small units, and we do what we call badging them out. We discovered relatively quickly that if you make a badge funny, so these things translate literally into buttons that staff wear in the store, and if you make the badge funny or at least a little bit catchy, people will opt into the training much more aggressively. So pretty much everything. We, all of our safety coordinators wear the safety team badge. If you learn to identify all of our baked goods and bread products on site, you get a doughboy. If you can be a backup cashier, you get to wear back that cash up, which is my personal favorite because what we have discovered is that anyone who would find it offensive if they understood it is too old to understand it. And so that's really been a lot of fun for us. So this is 8 out of what's now about 50 or 60 different badges that really run the gamut from product knowledge. We just made our Winoceros badge, is the wine department customer service badge, all the way through to ask me about organics or tell me about being an owner. The people who count out the safe at night get a badge for that. It really is every different kind of skill we have in the store. We do little competitions for which department can get their team the most badges in a given month, or we have a little plaque up that says, it's called the Hall of Ephemeral Fame for the person who this person on staff who most recently got a badge. So we change that out every couple of days as people try to trump each other in getting training. And the amazing thing is what you end up developing is a staff who gets really excited about learning how to do their jobs well and about cross-training, about getting into other people's departments and really learning what they do. Sorry, I will not dwell on that too much. Also at the bottom, just sort of showed in there, are the 2 members of staff so far who entered as entry-level staffers and have been promoted into management so far. As I say, we're less than a year old. I expect this to happen much, much more. We're very focused on internal promotion, but anyway, that's Diamond and Steph, and I'm very proud of them. Forgive me, I cribbed a couple slides from my annual report, so which was in November, so you may see some references to buying a turkey. One other place that we really tried to focus on community engagement was making sure that we had some real accessibility on price. NCG has been extremely helpful with that in their work that they've done on their Co-op Basics program. That's tied in to a program that we stole from several other co-ops in the Northeast called Food for All, in which we offer a 10% discount to anyone who qualifies for SNAP benefits. So the bones of that program, which I am more than happy to explain to any customer who asks me, is that we are leveraging the ability of higher income customers to subsidize lower income customers, the prices for lower income customers. So that is a differential discount for low-income customers. And then we also run the FCI Co-op Basics program, and also we've added to that significantly inside the store, and that's a program for all customers for everyday low prices on pantry basics, things like beans and white rice and chicken thighs and things that if you are willing to shop carefully, you can fill a cart of nutritious, family-friendly groceries for about $50. And the idea is that we can't make every single product in the store price competitive, but we can make sure that if you're trying to buy milk and eggs at my store, you'll be able to find them at a price that's competitive with pretty much anyone in town. I'm going the wrong way. I don't know why my slides are not fitting on the thing, but that's okay. We will ignore the fact that my slide is not on the page and talk about local. The other thing that we started out really trying to do, and in fact I would say one of our primary mission points was to really work with local vendors, both farmers and local product producers. This is just a little collage of some of the local companies that we work with. North Carolina is blessed to have a very diverse community of producers. We have 120 North Carolina-based craft breweries, and our store works with 40 different produce farmers. We have a North Carolina-based pasture-raised only beef and pork distributor that we work with. Anyway, we are trying to make sure as much as possible that as people invest in our store, we're investing that money back into our own community and really trying to close the loop of economic development that way. By creating accessibility for a much broader segment of the population, we have managed to create a real degree of success so far. So we're right at 1 year in. Our pro forma said that we would open, forgive me for all the numbers, we would open selling about $57,000 a week of product. When we opened at about $70,000 a week of product. This graph here is, do I have a laser? This graph here gives you our average weekly sales for May, which was just over 80, October of last year, which went up to about 90, and February, the month that we have just finished, we broke 100 for the first time, and then we broke it 4 more times. And we also see our weekly customer count going up similarly. When we opened, we were right at 3,500 customers a week, and that's gone up to over 4,500 as of last month. So we just are more and more seeing people feeling like we are a place that is trying to create a community and really get people in both to buy their groceries, and we do see a lot of people buying a lot of groceries, but also to really feel like this is sort of a third place for them and they can interact with their neighbors. Let me show you one more slide, which is a little overwhelming. Okay, so in addition to really just trying to run a good grocery store, we pay a lot of attention to things like pricing and margins and labor and all of the good metrics. We also try to do a whole bunch of other stuff. And this is just a little smattering to give you an idea of things that we are working on. I have chosen these specific examples, but also of the several dozen other examples. We've tried very hard to really target a whole bunch of different audiences to get people excited about a lot of different stuff. So, everything from serving fresh North Carolina oysters, which we don't feel we can do on a regular basis, but we did feel we could pull off for one night, and we got 300 people coming in, and we were shucking like mad. My hand was numb for 4 days. I mean, it was insane, but it was fun, and it got people talking, and people got excited. Neighbor Day is our what I hope will be an annual celebration right after Labor Day. Get it? Neighbor Day after Labor Day, in which we sell $3 hot dogs, and people come and hang out with their families. Great Clips came and gave free haircuts. This kind of just hokey, family-friendly, whatever. And then in the middle, you see a picture of our fruit cart that we've set up at the ballpark. Some of you may have heard of the greatest minor league baseball team of all time, the Durham Bulls. We entered into a partnership with them. They very, very generously charge us an extraordinary small amount to put a cart in the ballpark where 500,000 people come through every summer, and they come through and they buy slices of watermelon from us for $1. And I mean, it's an amazing thing in which, just a quick anecdote about that. So we're there, we're selling fresh fruit, we're the only healthy option at the ballpark, right? And a guy comes up and he orders a slice of watermelon, and we give him this big hunk of watermelon, because if you do the math, no matter how big a slice of watermelon you give someone, we haven't paid $1 for it, and we're making money on this, right? We give him this whopping slice of watermelon, and we say, that's $1. And he said, oh, you're undercharging. I would happily pay you $2 for this. And we say, but we don't overcharge people, we're the co-op. And as we're, and so I'm standing there as my vendor is, the staff person is saying this to this customer, and I'm thinking to myself, this is the single greatest advertising for the co-op that has ever happened. This thing where we say we are not about gouging you, we are about providing value and joy, and you're about to go and get watermelon juice running down your arm while you're watching a baseball game and feel like you're the most wholesome thing in the entire universe because we don't overcharge you, we're the co-op. And one more, my personal favorite, we just this February, so a month ago, every Thursday started doing dinner at the co-op for $3. It's real simple. We sell you one thing. It's a bowl of chili and a piece of cornbread. Yesterday it was 2 chicken drumsticks and rice and beans. We get 400 to 500 people coming in every week. We do make a little money on it. Where it's unlike most of the things we sell at the store. $3 dinners is pretty much straight conventional. It is all real food, but we're not buying. It's not the super fancy chicken. It's just chicken, but it's $3, and literally everybody can come and eat and sit together, and we have this nice outdoor area, and everything is, it just makes people happy, and we have gotten so much positive feedback from things like that, which just basically say, you are welcome here. We are the store where everyone is welcome. Let me go back to my original slide so you can see that was the theme all along. There. We literally said we're going to paint this on, the very front awning of the store. The first thing you see from us is everyone is welcome here. Anyway, so that is my story. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
First I want to say the badge program, the other programs you just showed about like the $3 dinners, absolutely brilliant. I am extremely impressed by those. My question then comes down to, as a GM, how much input on those programs comes from the board and the members, and how much is just, having a great GM with great ideas?
So we are a policy governance store. The board is organized with policy governance register in place. And so the answer to that question is very much in keeping with the philosophy of policy governance. This concept that I have been harping on for an hour of being community focused and accessible, focusing on diversity, focusing on local products, pushing down on affordability, that all comes from the board. Those are the stated mission and ends of the board. The thing that says, okay, how do you become accessible and get people in the door, and that all comes from me and my staff. So I would absolutely not say that it's a great GM. I would say it's a great GM. I don't mean to apply that to myself. It's a great GM and a great staff together that build a great store. All of the implementation and all of the specifics comes from inside the store. But the thing that is the goal, the one that says you need to put the accessibility of the store as your top priority, that's the board.
At a high level, sources and uses, total project costs, biggest categories of that came from?
Yeah, so it's a little complicated because of the relationship with self-help, but I will do my best. The whole project was about $2.2 million. That includes building the building and filling it with equipment and stocking it and pre-opening expenses, etc. The self-help actually built the building and own the building, and we lease it from them. So a lot of that $2.2 million we don't actually have, and we haven't ever had. But our equipment was about $650,000. We spent a couple $100,000 on pre-opening staffing. Did you ask for sources or uses?
Both.
Okay.
So that's where
So yeah, so where we got the money was self-help built the building. They then gave us a tenant improvement allowance to upfit the building that's rolled in, that we will pay back in the form of rent. We borrowed about $600,000 from NCDF, which is not called that anymore, and shared capital. Thank you. And NCIF, the Natural Capital Investment Fund, and LEAF. At least 2 out of 3 are here. And they gave us our equipment loan, and then we raised about $750,000 of preferred shares and community investment notes, and then our 2,000 owners represents about $200,000 of owner equity.
Thank you.
And what's your square footage?
10,000 total, is about 8,500 retail.
Can you talk a little about your decision to hire within that 1 mile and what the legal implications of that were? And
So we did, I won't say it was a decision, I will say it was a preference. We had open applications and we interviewed, and we in fact hired a lot of people who don't live with, as I say, about half our staff, 21 out of 40 right now, live within a mile of the store. So in that sense, there was no official preferential policy, although basically we said we want to make sure we give people a really good look. We also made really sure to connect directly. I mean, the biggest barrier to hiring people in our neighborhood was making sure people in our neighborhood knew that jobs were available. So we literally put a banner up on the side of our construction project that said "now hiring" with an envelope in it with blank applications, and we passed out 1,200 applications through that envelope. People would come, they must have, I didn't see it, but would come and take the whole pile, and you know, like, I mean, I think every human being within a mile of the store probably ended up with an application form before we were done. And that was really the key to making sure that, we also, you know, there are neighborhood listservs, we went to the churches, we did some walking around door to door in the immediate blocks to actually hand out applications. We just wanted
applications came in, like if that many went out?
several hundred, several hundred. It was mostly, I mean, the manager level was a lot more looking for people who really had significant qualifications. But at the clerk level, we really wanted to make sure that everybody knew about those jobs. Yeah.
Did I understand that the project manager overlapped with your employment for almost a year?
So the project manager overlapped with my employment until we opened the store. This was not without some political hurdles. So Don and so Don was the project manager until I was hired. He was involved in the GM selection process and then interviewed me. And we then, when I came on, Don and I have always had an excellent relationship, and more or less immediately went out to lunch and said, okay, now this is just flip-flop, now you more or less work for me. But the fact is, Don was extremely qualified and very knowledgeable and tremendously more knowledgeable about this project than I was at the time. And I had absolutely no reason not to be very respectful of what he knew and what he wanted to do and how much he wanted to stay involved. He did get into some tangle with the board because I think the board did not do a completely sufficient job in advance of hiring me, figuring out the fact that he would no longer report to the board, he would report to me. And so there was a lot of sort of wrangling over that. But for the most part, he and I got along so well that it was not a major issue. And he was working very part-time before I was hired, and he worked even more part-time. He sort of tapered out. Once I hired permanent staff, he phased out quite a bit more. Yeah.
I have two questions about the staff. It sounds like an amazing team. Are they owners of the co-op? And who does the training, which sounds like it's ongoing, non-stop?
Yes, so the owner's question is an interesting one, and I will put it second.
Can you repeat that question?
So the first question was, are the staff owners of the store? The second question was about who actually performs the training. The training is a pretty easy one. It's a combination of all sorts of different types of training. We will badge, if somebody says, I want to learn about balance sheets and does an online webinar about balance sheets. For the most part, in-store training is done by supervising managers. Occasionally we'll have peer-to-peer training. Most of them are based on the product knowledge ones, and the sort of store-based ones are often based on flashcard tests, which has been really fun, especially because the cashiers especially will find themselves up front with not a whole lot to do. So making sure that they have something to study from has been really positive. And then somebody can just take them through the flashcards and make sure they know. We have a flashcard set about the I Spy badges, what product is on what aisle, and so they'll go through and say, well, if someone comes and asks you for coffee, you need to be able to say, well, the bulk coffee's here, the package is there, and hot coffee's over here, and if you want ice, it's here, So that's everybody in the store. The worker owner thing is, we're actually in transition. We were originally in our articles of incorporation supposed to be a hybrid consumer owner, worker owner co-op. Naturally, when we had no employees, this was irrelevant. And it stayed irrelevant for somewhat longer than it probably should have. So we have sort of missed our first opportunity for getting workers' ownership, and this caused something of a drama in the fall that actually has worked out very, very well, and we are now in the process of creating a specific worker-owner class of, creating the mechanics of a specific worker-owner class of stock that in fact already technically existed. And so by the end of the summer, I expect we will have worker ownership as a distinct class of ownership from consumer ownership. Right now there are several worker owners, including myself, who are also consumer owners, workers who are also consumer owners. But by the end of the summer, I expect we will be what you would fully consider a hybrid.
Is that like a reduced cost for the shares?
It's actually an increased cost, so we will be dividing the dividend 50-50 consumers and staff, but there are now 3,000 consumer owners and there's still only 40 staff, and so the workers will be paying proportionally, it's not exactly proportional, but a significant amount more for their shares, although they'll have the opportunity to pay it over time.
So one of the things that our co-op has tried to, I guess, pinpoint where what we can do is to focus on trying to provide for the racial, our area is very diverse. So how were you able to pinpoint what you needed to provide for all of these different racial groups?
You mean in terms of product?
Yes, or how, like any problems that you ran into trying to focus on it?
Well, so product is, I think we probably don't do all that great a job if you're actually talking about what you would call international or ethnic food. We have a very small set of foods that are really for, different cultural cooking. Most of our product, so we are not actually in a food desert, we are in a low-income area, but within a mile of the store are two conventional grocers, Food Line and Compare Foods. So, and the Compare Foods is heavily ethnic and international food focused. So we didn't worry all that much about making sure that there was food accessibility in terms of being able to buy groceries in our neighborhood, because there already was. We did work very hard to make sure that we could provide accessible pricing on natural and organic foods. And then we really just try to go by our customers' input and the numbers. If something is selling, we assume it means that people want it, and if something's not selling, we assume they don't care. And that's really, it's pretty much standard category management that helps us make product decisions. But we do get a lot of feedback from customers.
What kind of problems have you ran into? I've heard all these wonderful things that's happening. Were there any kind of difficulties that you ran into, like, what? What happened?
Well, aside from the 7-year startup process.
Yeah, I'm talking about after opening the store.
Well, I mean, we have had, it has been an incredible amount of work, and there have been a lot of challenges. In terms of, you know, my blood pressure, the snow delay was the biggest, that we had hired a staff. I hired the managers on in November of last year, expecting a January opening, and because of construction delays, we ended up with a fully functional store, fully stocked with our less perishable products, so all of our shelf-stable product by, when did we stock it? February 9th, and our store didn't open until March 18th because we didn't have a parking lot because it kept snowing. And literally that meant that I was getting UNFI deliveries. Our dock is behind the store, you have to go through the parking lot to get to it. So I was getting UNFI deliveries in full-size 18-wheeler trucks through this mud pit, which was the snow, yeah, it was terrible. At 3 o'clock in the morning, because we were not on the regular UNFI distribution schedule, so they kept putting us on the beginning of the route. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I would be, literally, I was calling my contractor at 3 a.m. saying, can you bring this, I don't know if any of you know what a load is. It is essentially a forklift with 6-foot tires that they use to move pallets of bricks around, and we had one of those on the construction site, and he would come at 3 o'clock in the morning, because I love this man to this day, and pick the pallets off of the truck and drive them through the mud and deposit them through the I mean, that was bad. And then of course we've had a tremendous number of challenges. All of the things that I am describing, and I genuinely mean as real assets for the store, have also presented the kind of challenges that I think grow and produce a better and better store, but that's not to say they aren't challenges. So, you know, we do have a tremendous amount of racial diversity on staff, we have a tremendous amount of cultural diversity, we have close to maybe half a dozen members of staff who were recently incarcerated, and this is their first job back. We have a whole bunch of different levels of education, of experience, of economic history, and that has created an environment in which I think if you really provide support for it, and you welcome it, and you consider it a sort of open debate and community and communication is the strength that is our store. But I think considered differently, considered as a threat, that could really create a lot of chafing. And we have had a lot of frank and open discussions between people who weren't seeing eye to eye. I think to our benefit, but it's not always been...
A lot of storming.
Yeah. And
to the normie.
Exactly.
No theft.
Oh, there's been theft. Both staff theft and community theft. We have thankfully not yet had the thing that I expect to have happen, which is someone come in the store with a gun, which I am terrified about. We did have someone shot and killed across the street which was a moment, I mean, and as I say, we hired from the community, and we had 4 members of staff who either knew the guy who was killed or the guy who shot him. And this was very intense. And it was, I mean, I have never loved my staff more than I loved them that day. It's, you know, the moment when you recognize the common humanity of all people is, you know, it's at these moments.
Yep.
All right, now I'm getting over.
Yeah.
What is your membership share, and how have you been able to relate to the lower economic group in your area?
Okay, so our membership share is $100. That's one time, not every year. What you're actually buying is a share of stock in the co-op. It's not a membership fee. We, as part of the Food for All program, so everybody who joins as our regular owners pay $100 up front. As part of the Food for All program, if you qualify for Food for All, you qualify to become an owner for $15 and to pay the balance off over time. And when you pay that $15, you become a full voting member of the cooperative community. And that also then qualifies you for the 10% discount. And that has substantially increased our low income participation. The goal, the way we chose $15 after doing a bunch of research, was we wanted a similarly impactful amount of money for people that was significant but not prohibitive.
And how long, you said over time, sorry.
So this is a little bit of a co-op trick. We have structured it so they will pay it off over time through their cooperative dividends, which is to say when we issue a dividend, rather than getting a coupon, that will go into their ownership debt.
How many Food for All members do you have?
I think, it's not a ton. So we had to wait on that program until we, well, no, so when you open, you're not allowed to apply to accept SNAP until you have an open store. And then when you apply, it takes, in our case, almost 3 months before they approve you. So we actually couldn't accept EBT until 3 months in, and it felt very silly to be asking people whether or not they qualify for EBT and then not being able to accept it. So we didn't spend a whole lot of time promoting our Food for All program until about 4 months into the operations of the store. And we're now approaching it. We have about 100 Food for All members.
We'll talk about this later.
Yes.
Could you say more about the 10% discount and how that works?
It's a flat discount. It goes. It's based on them giving their owner number. Because of restrictions around SNAP and because of our own values about the program, we wanted to make sure that Food for All owners were treated like owners just like everybody else. And so to make unlike all of the ways that we value transparency in co-ops, we wanted this one to be pretty opaque. So we ask every single customer who comes through the line, what is your owner number? And if that owner number correlates to a Food for All ownership as opposed to a non-Food for All ownership, a 10% discount is automatically applied. It doesn't apply to alcohol, but every other product in the store.
Do you mark up to get that balance back? How do you get that 10% back in sales?
So, I suppose we must be marking up because we are making our margins. We haven't marked up specifically for it.
It's not a conscious.
It's budgeted. We're budgeting for it as part of our owner benefits budget line. We float it. The goal is, I have a plan to, which we haven't done it yet, but originally the plan was to have a roundup at the register to support it. We just haven't done it, pulled the trigger on it yet. I have somewhat mixed feelings about roundup at the register, but I think that I'm excited about it because I think the other thing it would mean is that every customer who comes through the line gets informed that we have a program that offers a discount for low-income customers and that they have the opportunity to support it. Yeah.
So I'm just following up on what Leila said. I'm with the same group that she's with, and one of our big struggles has been, as a startup, getting shares to people who find it hard to afford the share cost. You mentioned that you do the Food for All after you open, but ahead of opening, was there anything that you guys did to help get people involved to get your ownership numbers up with people who maybe couldn't afford the full value of the ownership share?
So I began, to be honest, no, at least not really. There was a lot of community interaction and there was a lot of talk about, I take back my no. So there was a lot of conversations with a lot of different community groups about what the store was going to be like, what the values of the store were, and what it was really for. I don't think we did a whole lot of effective work in terms of lowering the financial barrier to ownership, but we did a tremendous amount of work making connections in the neighborhoods around the store, making connections in a sort of broad segment of the Durham community, and really talking to people about how this was. But honestly, given the fact that many people had a very strong image of what the Durham Food Co-op had been in its previous, the previous generation of co-op in Durham had been, there were many people who were simply not likely to be convinced that we were going to be different until we built the store and we turned out to be different.
So your ownership numbers seem to grow pretty quickly, so there must have been a decent base of people who were ready to put in that kind of money.
Durham, even if you squint to avoid seeing that it's a very diverse town, is kind of a co-op ready town in a bunch of ways. It's got a bunch of big universities in it, and it's got a bunch of high tech and medical and et cetera. There's plenty of traditional co-op target audience. And really on the back of local product, I think they really managed to raise a lot of interest that way. But I would say the short answer is no, I don't think we did a tremendous good job succeeding in convincing people that we really could create a market that appealed to a broader set. Yeah.
Can you talk about your cafe and your prepared foods that you have? Because just visiting Blooming Foods here, I noticed there was an awful lot of people that ate there and picked up a lot of prepared foods to take home.
Yeah, we do about 20% of our sales through the cafe. That includes a hot bar, a sandwich bar, make-to-order sandwiches. We bake pastries in the mornings, we do fresh bread, and then there's a whole wall of grab and go. We are fortunate to be within spitting distance of Weaver Street Market, and they run a big commissary, and so we buy a lot of our grab and go and prepared foods out of their commissary. We cook for our own hot foods, but a lot of our pre-packed stuff comes from Weaver Street or from several other local prepared foods vendors. And it's been a tremendous. To be honest, we don't make a ton of money on it. The getting their margins right has been a struggle. I would say we were actively losing money on it for a while, maybe close to 6 months. Getting the labor in line has been hard, although I think we're pretty much there. I would say now we're at least making money, not a ton. It's a tremendous amount of work, it's a lot of headache, there's a lot of turnover, and it is completely worth it. This is the thing that gets the people in the store. So as I say, our building is one of 2 buildings in this self-help development. The other one is an office building, which construction on that building lagged behind ours pretty significantly. So it's 2 floors. The first floor opened when we were about 6 months in, and the second floor just opened. And we saw our daily customer count go up by about 100 people when that second floor opened. They're not buying anything. Our basket size went down significantly. They're buying coffee and a pastry, but that's a person, if I get them coming there every day, I can start figuring out what they will buy. And as you say, prepared foods for take home is our next frontier because of those people. That 100 customers are exactly the people I want to catch on their way out of the office and on their way home. Yeah.
It seems like so much of your strategy in terms of price point, affordability, even some of your branding was based on the NCG membership. Can you speak a little bit about that experience? Because it's not a slam dunk that all co-ops can be able to get in, and there's some real concern if you're not able to.
So, no, and I think you're right. I think it has been a major part of our strategy. Part of this is personal. I feel like if I can look to an organization like NCG and, I mean this in the legal sense, I will steal anything I can steal from anybody I can steal it from. There's no reason that I need to invent a grocery store. And if I can, so we took, as you notice, our logo, we're part of their co-branding program. So we've incorporated the NCG brand into our logo. We use their interior store design package. I stole signage templates from every co-op in the universe, and also policies. My handbook, it comes from Grand Forks. It's like everything we could take from somebody who already had it, we took it. What's great about Co-op Universe is that they were delighted to give it. That I never met a cooperator who said, no, I wrote that policy, you can't copy it. And we have made as much use of that as possible, simply because, I would rather not reinvent the wheel. That's it. So that's NCG and a whole lot of others. I'm not sure that we could be anywhere near as competitive, especially on things like price, if we weren't members of NCG. Between the UNFI contract and their Co-op Basics program and the Co-op Deals program, they're working extremely hard on making sure that we can compete in a really price-sensitive landscape. As to membership, the things that I would recommend are the more you look like a sturdy, well-functioning organization, the more likely they are to be interested in, I should say we, now that we're members and the members vote, if you look like the kind of organization that, has a market study, has a business plan, has a pro forma that makes sense, has a functioning board with reasonable board policies, has either a GM that you can really defend or a plan to get one that really makes sense, that's the kind of thing that NCG is looking very carefully at when they're looking at startups.
And what percentage of your sales or your products come from your relationship with NCG?
So the only products that we buy that are directly related to them are through UNFI.
Yeah.
It's not exactly true because there's a few little tidbits, basically. And UNFI, so UNFI probably represents about 30 to 40% of the products in the store. It's probably about 90% of our center of the store sales. They don't really tangle too much in, we don't work with Alberts, so we don't work with them in the produce department. And they don't really tangle in the deli, wine and beer and all that. But yeah, if you want to compete on Kashi cereal and nut thins and all that, NCG membership is extremely helpful. It's not, you can buy anything you want from UNFI, but if you're going to get a really competitive price, it helps.
Those numbers, you said 30% of your store has those their products, is that right?
I think about 30%, it's just off the top of my head, so forgive me, but I think about 30% of our total purchasing is UNFI purchasing.
And did you say something about 80% of the sales?
Of the center of the store.
Oh, 80% of the sales.
So the grocery department, refrigerated, frozen, about 80% of that product is UNFI product.
What percentage of your sales come from local producers?
So this is a very complicated question depending on how you mean the word local. So we buy about 15% of our products through Weaver Street Market. And when I say through, about 10% of our product is actual Weaver Street Market product, and then they cross-dock a whole bunch of other stuff. We go in with them on a contract with Freebird Chicken. So we're buying it through Weaver Street, and they're facilitating it, and we're paying their drivers to bring it to us, but it's not their product. And the stuff they're making in their commissary kitchen, they're making it locally, and we're distributing it, but they're not necessarily buying local ingredients, but some. We're also working with 2 local dairies that we buy direct from, local eggs. We have a local, as I said, a local beef and pork distributor that works only with North Carolina farms. We have a whole bunch of different produce, et cetera, that we're buying direct from. The converse of that, our Organic Valley Milk is a national co-op of locally family farmer-owned farms, and so all of our Organic Valley Milk comes either from North Carolina or from 2 surrounding states, but it's coming through Atlanta from UNFI, and it's a nationally owned co-op, and so it depends how you want to slice that. But if you're talking about actual product that was
Like a 100-mile radius, I guess.
So if we're going to label something local in the store, we mean that it was either produced or grown within 250 miles of the store, or within the state of North Carolina, because there's a few places that it, and I would say Weaver Street is the really tricky one. So I would say it's about 20% of our product if you don't count stuff that Weaver Street is making, and it's probably about 35 if you do. If you count independent, locally owned companies that we're purchasing from who aren't necessarily buying local products or ingredients, it goes up to about 55 or 60%.
In terms of starting in 2007 and building and retaining members, I guess my question is about retention and about...
You don't offer them their money back.
Well, did anyone ask for their money back? Was there,
yes,
how did that evolve over time?
We probably refunded somewhere under 24 ownerships over time. Technically, if they move out of state, they're not legally supposed to be owners anymore. If they don't tell us they moved out of state, we don't ask. But if someone comes and says, I'm moving, we give them their $100 back. And if someone says, I just don't want to do this anymore, we give them their $100 back. Because I'd rather give them $100 than have any sort of public fight about it. It's your money, it's not my money, here you go. That said, we rarely discuss the fact that we will give you your money back. It's not like there's a big thing on the website that says, don't like us anymore, come get your money back. So
Was there anything said to calm them down or like sort of smooth things out or?
I would say maybe surprisingly, the problem was the opposite. That it wasn't that they were not calm, it was that they were too calm. I think there was a lot of like, well, there went that $100. Like, you know, I think there were plenty of people who were completely surprised when we actually got off the phone. I probably have gone over time. Sorry to. Good.